Disclaimer. This content is a work of fiction. All characters are fictional. The story is not based on real events or actual legal proceedings. Before the gavel fell. Episode 7. The first time he walked in. In 2009, Chris Katagis was 33 years old enough to understand how systems worked, old enough to recognize patterns when they repeated, old enough to know that nothing meaningful ever starts all at once. It accumulates. He was walking along the edge of the New Haven Green when the memory returned. Not softly, not as nostalgia, as pressure. The sound came first. Children's voices, high, uneven, careless, the kind of sound adults tune out without realizing it. Chris slowed. Across the green, a class trip was forming itself into a loose line. Backpacks bouncing, jackets half-zipped. A teacher clapping her hands once, then twice, trying to gather attention she never really had. Chris stopped walking. The present stayed where it was, but something underneath it shifted. He had been here before. Not today. Not as an adult, as a child. A field trip. The memory opened fully now. He could feel the day as clearly as if it were happening again. The early dismissal from school. The way time moved differently when you knew you were leaving the classroom. The bus ride, louder than usual, everyone talking over everyone else. He remembered the permission slip, folded, creased, handed back to the teacher that morning like it mattered more than any homework assignment. He remembered stepping off the bus. The courthouse had felt enormous then, not impressive, not important, heavy. The stone walls seemed too thick, the steps too tall. The building didn't feel like it was made for people. It felt like it was made to outlast them. Chris remembered looking up and thinking that important things happened inside, but not understanding what that meant. Inside, the air had been colder. Still, the sound of their shoes echoed more than it should have. The teacher's voice lowered automatically, without instruction. The courtroom felt bigger than it needed to be. Chris remembered sitting on the bench, feet dangling, not quite reaching the floor. He remembered the seal on the wall, the flags, the symmetry of it all, everything in its place. The teacher explained what courts were for. Justice, law, fairness, words that sounded reassuring when you were young, even if you didn't fully understand them. Chris remembered nodding, because everyone else nodded. Then he remembered the chair, the judge's chair, empty. Even as a child, that absence unsettled him. He didn't know why. In the memory, the courtroom doors opened while the class was still inside. Not for them, for someone else. A man entered in handcuffs. No shouting, no announcement, just movement. The room changed immediately. The teacher paused mid-sentence. The children went quiet without being told. The sound of the man's footsteps echoed once, then stopped. Chris remembered watching him. The man didn't look angry. He didn't look dangerous. He looked tired. Chris remembered wondering what he had done. Then wondering how you ended up there. Then wondering something more dangerous. Whether anyone ever thought it would be them. The teacher resumed talking as if nothing had happened, as if pretending was part of the lesson. The memory loosened. Chris blinked. He was back in 2009, 33 years old, standing near the green, watching a different group of children approach the same courthouse. Different faces, same building. The feeling didn't fade. His phone vibrated in his pocket. Chris didn't take it out right away. He already knew. Memory reference, logged. Origin timestamp, prior. The system wasn't confused. It wasn't mixing timelines. It was connecting them. Chris started walking again, slower now, circling the green instead of cutting across it. Every step felt deliberate, as if the ground itself had weight. He realized something he hadn't before. The system hadn't started tracking him when his name appeared on a docket. It hadn't started when hearings went missing or motions filed themselves. It had started earlier. Much earlier. It had started the first time he noticed the system as something separate from the story being told about it. As a child, he hadn't understood the rules, but he had understood the silence. He passed a bench and sat down, watching the class disappear into the courthouse. The doors closed behind them. Chris stayed where he was. As a child, he had left that building believing court was something you visited. As an adult, he was beginning to understand it was something you entered once and never fully left. His phone vibrated again. Continuity established. Chris exhaled slowly. "So that's what this is," he said quietly. The system didn't respond. It never did. He stood and walked toward the courthouse steps. He stopped at the bottom. He didn't climb them. Not yet. He thought about how many times he had walked past this place without thinking about it. How many decisions had been made inside while the city moved around it, unaware. The green was full of ordinary life. People eating lunch, students cutting across the grass, a man reading a newspaper, folding it carefully when he finished. None of them were thinking about verdicts. That was the point. His phone vibrated again. Contextual anchor strengthened. Chris shook his head. "You're really reaching," he muttered. But the system wasn't reaching him. It was consolidating. He thought again about the man in handcuffs from his childhood memory, about how that moment had lodged itself somewhere deep, quiet, unexamined. Not fear, awareness, the understanding that systems didn't need permission to act. They only needed participation. Chris sat down on the steps, not inside, not outside, right on the edge. For a long moment, nothing happened. No alert, no notice. Then, gently, his phone vibrated one last time. Origin link confirmed. Subject age at event, minor. Current age, 33. Year, 2009. Chris closed his eyes. The system hadn't accused him. It hadn't charged him. It had traced him. Back to the first time he walked into a courthouse and realized something didn't belong to him anymore. In that moment, as a child, he hadn't known what to call it. Now he did. Context. And context was more permanent than any ruling. Chris stood and stepped away from the courthouse. Behind him, the doors remained closed. Ahead of him, the green stretched open and unchanged. But the space between them felt thinner now, as if he had crossed it once as a child and had been walking it ever since. If you enjoyed this story, consider supporting the channel by liking the video, sharing it with someone who enjoys fictional court stories, and subscribing for future episodes. Thank you for listening.